Hello and welcome. This is a 10 minutes or less summary. This time it will be the Bands of Mourning, which is Mistborn Era 2, Book 3. We begin with Wax and Steris, and they are at their wedding day. This is before the ceremony begins. While Wax is getting ready, an unidentified Kandra asks Wax for help with something, and Wax immediately refuses. At the altar, while the ceremony is going, outside a large water tower begins to fall and pours water and begins to fall down onto the ceremony. It pours water all over all of the attendants, but nobody was ever actually in danger. Nobody was seriously injured, and the wedding is postponed. Later on, Marassi discovers that it was Wayne's doing. Wayne does not like Steris for whatever reason, so he wanted to delay the wedding to give Wax more time to come around to how Wayne feels about Steris. I like Steris. I don't know why Wayne doesn't like her. But after this, the Kandra that Wax refused instead goes to Marassi and asks her for help. And it has something to do with investiture and identity. Later on, that Kandra goes to Wax's mansion where Wax, Wayne, and Marassi are. He identifies himself as Vendel. He wants Wax's and the group's help because he believes that somebody is trying to make a full Allomancer which is a Mistborn, and a full Feruchemist, all in one person, and he thinks it has something to do with the Bands of Mourning, which were once owned by the Lord Ruler. Vendel goes on to say that another one of his Kandra named Relur he suspects he found the Bands of Mourning, and upon trying to return from the trip, he was attacked in a town called New Saran. One of his hemalurgic spikes was removed, and they were able to recover Relur, but they haven't been able to get much information from him. He, meaning Vendel, wants Wax to investigate what happened to Relur, recover that hemalurgic spike. Wax is still like, I don't want to get involved, but Vendel shows a video, which is new technology in this era, of the town of New Saran and the people that he believes were involved with the attack on Relur, and Wax notices and recognizes one of the faces. It's his sister, Telsin, and this is enough to convince Wax to go to New Saran. Marassi, Wayne, and Steris and Milan all accompany him. At this point, it's Wax's belief that Telsin is still being held hostage by the Set and his uncle, so he wants to go and rescue her. So Wax, Wayne, Steris, Marassi, and Milan are on the train, and it begins going towards New Saran. While on the train, it is attacked by what appeared to be train robbers. They have an enemy Allomancer who's a coin shot with them. Wax and Wayne begin fighting the train robbers, and a device is thrown in front of Wax by one of the robbers, and it depletes Wax of all of his elementic metals. Steris, being the planner that she is, brought some steel with her. She gives it to Wax. He restores his metals. He begins killing the train robbers, and he ends up on the roof of the train against one of the Allomancers, and things aren't going well in the fight. Steris pops up and has a shotgun that Wax had brought with him. It is a powerful shotgun, so when she shoots it, it pushes her off the train. They happen to be going over a bridge when this happens, so she falls down and is hurtling towards the water. Wax, having restored his metals, is able to jump down, grab her, and bring her back up. At this point, the train robbers had fled. Wax's group also obtained the Allomancy depleting device that was used against Wax. And shortly after this, the train continues on and they arrive at New Saran. After getting settled into New Saran, Wax and Steris go to a noble's party, following a lead from Allure, the Kandra who was attacked while in New Saran, coming back from having found the bands of mourning. Before entering the party, we have a Hoyd appearance. He is pretending to be a beggar, and he tosses a coin at Wax, and Wax catches it, doesn't recognize the coin, and when he looks back up, Hoyd is gone. Marassi and Wayne team up to investigate a different lead and discover that someone is robbing corpses before they are buried. So they go to the graveyard to investigate further. They go to the grave keeper and ask him to dig up a grave. They are looking for the Reeler's hemalurgic spike. They think it's buried there. This is the grave site where all of the people who were killed by the explosion that Reeler was attacked with were buried. Wax and Steris are at the party, or inside the party now. The owner of the house that the party is at, her name is Lady Kelisina. Wax suspects that she is in league with the Set and his uncle Edwarn. He approaches Lady Kelisina, gives her a hint that he's onto her, and she rushes off, and Wax follows where she goes. Going back to Wax and Marassi, while the graves are being dug up, they are suddenly attacked by some gunmen. They are able to get to cover, and after they get to cover, the constables arrive, having heard the gunshots, apprehend the gunmen. Wax and Marassi find a ledger at the gravekeeper's office. They take this and they find a lead within it, which they pursue. After a few steps, the ledger that they found lead them to a small town outside of New Saran called Dulcing. Wax pursues Lady Kelisina. She goes to a back room in the home and closes the door. Wax listens at the door and hears Lady Kelisina talking to Edwarn. So at this point, Wax believes Edwarn is the room. Kelisina and Edwarn are discussing that they don't want Wax investigating the Reeler's hemalurgic spike and are trying to throw him off the trail. At this point, Wax opens the door, enters the room, and sees that Edwarn's voice is coming from a small box that Kelisina is talking to. After this, one of the servants in the room pulls out a gun, shoots and kills Lady Kelisina. Wax is then framed for killing Lady Kelisina, so he runs, grabs Steris, escapes the party, and he meets back up with Marassi and Wayne, and they all decide to follow the lead that they got from the graveyard ledger and travel to the town of Dulcing. When they arrive in Dulcing, they find it is swarming with soldiers. So Wax, Wayne, Marassi, and Milan all decide that they're going to infiltrate. Steris being that she doesn't have any combat abilities, it would be better for her to stay behind, which she does. The group then splits up. Wax and Wayne are going to go after and look for Edwarn, who they suspect is here. Marassi and Milan are going to look for Reeler's hemalurgic spike. After infiltrating the compound, Wax and Wayne spot a large ship inside of a larger building. They haven't seen anything quite like it before. They see what appears to be engineers working on it or investigating it, and they also spot Wax's sister in one of the rooms. So she's there, and the plan changes to rescuing her. After Milan and Marassi get inside the compound, they happen upon a safe which they suspect may hold the hemalurgic spike they're looking for. While Milan is breaking into the safe, Marassi goes to the room next to the one that they're in, and in that room she finds a cage, and within the cage is a man wearing a mask and speaking a language she doesn't understand. The only word that she can understand is him saying please. Meanwhile, Milan is able to break open the safe. Inside they find the hemalurgic spike, and before leaving, Milan also breaks open the cage that the mystery man is in, and they leave. Wax and Wayne reach the room that Telson is in. They are able to get in and release her. Right after this, they are discovered by the guards, and they end up having to fight a large group of Allomancers and Haze Killers. And Haze Killers are just people that are trained to kill and fight Allomancers. During this, Marassi and Milan join the fray, and Marassi is struck by a bullet. Milan pulls her and the mystery man towards the ship to try to get Marassi to safety. After some fighting, Wax and Wayne decide that there are far too many enemies for them to handle, so they also retreat to the ship. Now on the ship, they are trapped there, but lo and behold, the mystery man that Marassi and Milan freed actually knows how to operate the ship, so it must be his ship. It is operated with allomantic steel pushing, which Wax is a steel pusher, so not the entire ship, but a section of it, or an escape pod, that they all crawl into it, and Wax uses his steel pushing and guidance from the mystery man, and they fly away. Telson is of course with them, so she's aboard the ship. They then go and pick up where they left Steris, and with everybody on board, they have a conversation with the mystery man, who has access to technology which will allow him to speak in a language that everybody else can understand. It's their language. And after a long discussion, they all decide to go to a temple where they believe the bands of mourning are being held. It's off in the mountains, so that's where they go. They also learn that Edwarn, Wax's uncle, is going to this same temple seeking the bands of mourning, so they'll be seeing him there. The gang arrives at the temple. The mystery man, I'm forgetting his name, lands the ship. They enter the temple, and Wax spots several booby traps. Milan, being a Kandra, they have her take the lead, and she sets off some of the booby traps, so when they damage her, she's not actually being damaged. And they make their way through this temple. After Wax and the gang have made some progress through the temple, they are accosted, or I guess accost is the right word, by Edwarn, who wants to parley with the group. He comes in alone, and they decide to allow him to accompany them because he's alone, and what harm could he cause by himself? So after they get through all of the booby traps, they enter a room at the end of the temple, which reasons to stand, this would be where the bands of mourning would be kept. When they enter the room, they find shattered glass on the floor and which appears to be a case, and it is empty, or rather, the bands of mourning are not there. After this, Telson reveals that she is actually a mole for the set. She's in the set, and she's of higher ranking than Edwarn. She pulls out a pistol, and before Wax can react, she shoots him in the neck. Wayne is also injured. One of Milan's hemalurgic spikes is quickly taken out. This is, of course, after Edwarn's soldiers come in and storm the area. Wayne manages to escape, and Wax falls down one of the pits, which was one of the booby traps. And Marassi, Milan, and Steris are taken prisoner. Down in the pit, Wax is gravely injured and is bleeding out. In the darkness, he spots a blue light and begins crawling toward it. After he makes some progress, he hears Edwarn closing in on him. He's following him and going to finish the job. After crawling a little bit further, Wax comes upon what appears to be the bands of mourning. They're a set of bracers, At this point, Edwarn catches up to Wax. He takes the bracers thinking that he's found the Bands of Mourning. Ends up being that they are not. It gives him no additional powers. Edwarn sets off a booby trap within the pit, and it drops a large block onto Wax. After a short period of time, Wax dies. I forgot to mention that before entering the temple, Wayne, being the little thief that he is, spotted a statue that was holding a spear. He decided to take the spearhead, and he always replaces it with some object. So he has the spearhead, which he at some point through the tunnel gave to Marassi. So while Marassi, Steris, and Milan are being held prisoner by the Set's guards, she begins to think about how the people who hid the Bands of Mourning would have hid them, and leads her to believe that that spearhead that Wayne had stolen and given to her possibly could be the Bands of Mourning. Going back to Wax, he has now died. His soul or spirit has left his body, but before crossing over, he has a conversation with Harmony. Then we go back to Marassi, and she spots the spearhead on the ground. She grabs it, immediately feels godlike powers fill her. She uses the elementic and ferrochemical abilities that has been bestowed by the Bands of Mourning to destroy all of the soldiers, or at least disable them. And having heard that Wax is dead, immediately goes to him. She is able to heal Wax's mortal wounds with the Bands of Mourning, and after Wax is essentially revived, she gives the Bands of Mourning to Wax. After this, Wax goes to the area where Steris is being held. Edwarn tries to flee. Wax captures him. We go to Telsin, who is trying to flee, but Wayne catches up to her and he just shoots her in the head. We go back to Milan, whose hemolytic spike is recovered, and she is given it back, so she's restored. And after some discussion, it is decided that the Mystery Man, who we now know is part of a society of people that is not a part of Elendel, obviously, on Scadrial, named the Malwish, it is decided that they are going to hang on to the Bands of Mourning for safekeeping. Wayne then takes Wax over to where he shot Telsin, only to find blood on the ground but no body. It appears Telsin is also an Allomancer, and she is able to heal herself, and she gets away. They end up not finding her. After this, the Wax, Wayne, and the rest of his crew go back to Elendel. Wax and Steris have a very cute moment, and they do end up getting married. And Edwarn is imprisoned. Shortly after, a Kandra visits Edwarn in prison, tells Edwarn that he is no longer needed, and kills him. It appears this Kandra is in the set. But that is where the book ends. Well, we have one last vision with Wax, who has a vision of Kelsier with the Mamalish people. He's the one who went back, who helped them when they were in when they needed it. The Malish people ended up worshipping Kelsier after this, but the timeline's kind of confusing because this would have been after the Lord Ruler was killed, and Kelsier was killed before this. So I'm not sure what this means. If it means Kelsier is somehow still alive, or what that means. But that's where it ends. So that's it. That is how Era 2 of Mistborn ended. I enjoyed it a lot. Thanks for anybody who actually did watch this. From here, I have started on Malazan. So I am about 3/4 of the way through Gardens of the Moon. It's very different from Mistborn. And I should have a video up on that sometime in the next week. Thanks for watching.